So good day to everyone. Today is Yud Tammuz. It's 2 days before Bais Tammuz. Bais Tammuz is known in Chabad as Chag HaGeula, the Day of Redemption, referring to the redemption of the previous Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, from his incarceration and death sentence in Russia during the time of the communist, Stalinist, KGB, NKVD. And for us, and not only for us, but for every Jew, as I'll tell you in a moment, it's a special day. So if I bring a little bit today, we'll talk a little bit about it. The Frierdiker Rebbe, in the year after he was given freedom, the first Yud Bais Tammuz, 1928. This happened in 1927. In 1928, he wrote a letter, and he said, "Lo yoisi bilvad gol HaKadosh Baruch Hu." Not only did God redeem me, but He redeemed everyone. B'Shem Yisrael Yechuna. He redeemed every Jew that's called a Jew by a nickname, even by a nickname. And that's a very, very important statement. And that means not only did Hashem save my life, but He saved every Jew, even a Jew who all he knows or she knows is that they're Jewish. They know no Torah, they do no mitzvahs, but they know one thing: they were born to a Jewish mother or had a proper Jewish conversion. They're Jewish. They were also redeemed in 1927 on this day of Yud Bais Tammuz. And the Rebbe, our Rebbe, would bring every single year Yud Bais Tammuz from 1951, when he officially became Rebbe, but even earlier till 1992, 1991, the last time that he spoke at a Sikha Fabrengen about this. And what was the Rebbe's point? The Rebbe's point was that his father-in-law's release was a release and a redemption for all Yidden, for all Jews, regardless of their religiosity or non-religiosity, because the breakthrough to withstand Stalinism, communism, which sought to destroy and obliterate Judaism, God, Chas v'Sholem, didn't work. And the Rebbe was very clear in teaching us that the previous Rebbe was the sole individual who stood up to the communists the way he did, risking his life, literally. And over the years of research and documentation and books, I could tell you that this is a fact. It's not wishful thinking. Even though there have been books written where people have challenged various aspects, but no one denied the fact that the one and the only one who was willing to actually give his life away by keeping Judaism going, keeping the cheder open, keeping the mikveh open, and instructing his Hasidim to do the same was Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, the Baal HaGeula of Yud Bais Tammuz. So even though today, 2026, it's 99, right? Next year, 2027, will be 100 years since the event took place. So it's 99 years. And we're living in Florida, in Ramat Bet Shemesh, in Brooklyn. And in a sense, that time period is finished. But everyone knows very well that today, once again, anti-Semitism is rampant. And there are similarities to what was going on in Europe Kristallnacht and post-Kristallnacht. That was in Poland and in Germany. And then there is the secularism that has been creeping in to Jewish communities, which is when in Rome, do like the Romans and all of that. So this fight for survival is very, very appropriate. So we have to say l'chaim, and my wonderful wife brought me some wine to say l'chaim. If anyone would like to say l'chaim, I've been told, yeah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ba'orei pri hagafen. L'chaim, at the work of the previous Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, and his Hasidim, and the work of Chabad should not be seen as only a Hasidic thing or only a Chabad thing, but it should be seen as Yiddishkeit, world Jewry. And that is why Chaim Zev, after the Hasidim announced and celebrated Yud Bais Tammuz as a Yom Tov, as I told you in the last class, we don't say Tach Shabbos and Sunday, because the previous Rebbe didn't go out, Mark, from jail on the actual 12th of Tammuz, which is Shabbos, this year's Shabbos, because it was a holiday in Russia. So even though you had a paper that you can go out scot-free, you can't walk out because everything is locked up and the office is closed. You got to stay over another day. Here, when Rabashkin went out, from his 8 years, immediately they told him, you're free, and he walks out. 5 minutes after he was told he's free, he walks out the door. In Russia, it wasn't that way. You're free, but you can't leave yet because of a technicality. So he left on Yud Gimel. So that's why Chabad makes not only the festival for Yud Beis, the 12th, but also the 13th, Yud Gimel, which this year is Sunday, and we don't say Tachnun. So when Reb Chaim Ozer Grudensky, Reb Chaim Ozer was the Rav, the chief rabbi of Vilna. Vilna was a bastion for the Litvak movement of Judaism, non-Hasidim. And Reb Chaim Ozer was someone who was good, was close to the Rebbe Rashab yet, the previous Rebbe's father and the previous Rebbe. And he distributed funds to everyone, including the previous Rebbe, for his institutions. So when they came to kind of complain, they said, look, here again, Chabad's making a new holiday. Another holiday where they don't say Tachnun. Another festive day. So you know what he said? He said, by Zei Kumtsu, by them, by the Hasidim, by Chabad, there's additional positive energy that's added and added. And by uns wird weniger and weniger. And by us, it's becoming less and less. That's because of the secularism that crept into Haskalah, the Enlightenment movement that crept into the youth of Russia and of Europe. So there was a downturn in religious observance by the youth. So Reb Chaim Ozer alluded to that. By them, it goes only more and more. The youth is celebrating another festival, another part of Torah that's, another reason to be more religious, to be more involved in Torah. And by us, it's less and less. So what we see from Reb Chaim Ozer's statement is that the Yom Tov of Yud Beis Tammuz is for every Jew. And then I want to now just show you historically how this is true. More points. So in Cincinnati, there was a rabbi named Eliezer Silver. They called him Laser, Reb Laser Silver. He was the president of the Union of Orthodox Rabbis in the 1930s and 40s and 50s, till his passing in 68 or 69, I forget now. And he was a powerhouse, a real powerhouse. He was a Litvak, and he had tremendous knowledge in Torah, and he was a sharp fellow, and he was an activist. He's the one that got visas for Jews to be saved from the Holocaust. He had his hands in Washington on behalf of the Jewish community. His name was, again, Rabbi Eliezer Silver. I wrote a book called Chabad and Rabbis. I found in the archives, I told you I was invited to be a fellow at the archives in Cincinnati, and I found a tremendous amount of letters and correspondence from Reform rabbis and Reform leaders with Rabbi Silver. And he doesn't mince his words. He stands firm. And I also went to his gravesite. This is online. You can see my YouTubes about me at his gravesite. So the point is like this, that Rabbi Eliezer Silver, he rolled the red carpet out for the previous Rebbe. You know, he was a Litvak. He wasn't a Chassid. But he knew one thing. Who is the one that fought Stalin? One man, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson. And for that, we open all doors for him. Okay? You know, there's one thing, Mark, to celebrate your Jewishness, our Jewishness, with learning and davening, and fine. There's another thing to getting down and dirty. Put your Judaism in the street. You know, they want to run over you, and you stand up and say, I'm here, too bad. What are you going to do about it? And today, this message, Menashe, this message is so much more important. And Baruch Hashem, that in Eretz Yisrael, the Israeli government and the soldiers, no one's perfect, but stood up to the enemy, and stood up to America, stood up to, you know, people who said, no, back down, and, you know, accused us of genocide and things like that. And I'm not making a political statement. I'm not a politician. But the fact that we stand up, that's the only way the world will understand. Really. So when we talk about the Holocaust, never again, you know, Meir Kahana's slogan, never again, the concept is right. Never again do you bow down. Enough with this bowing down. Because we see now, look, here's in America, Canada, Australia, look, free countries, and they try killing us, they try hurting us. So the previous Rebbe already 99 years ago shared this message. The message is that every Jew, even if you're just a Jew by the name Jew and you don't know anything, you stand up and you fight the enemy. And how do you do it? By bringing light into the world. You don't fight the enemy by becoming more dirtier and more disgusting. You know, my father is greater than your father. You don't do that. What you do is you bring light, more Torah, more mitzvahs, more helping. That's how you overcome the enemy. We've been learning in the Maimer, we just finished the Maimer Derech B'Tzesecha, Mitzvah Abbas Yisrael, so appropriate that this Farbrengen is a day after we finished the Maimer, and the Tzemach Tzedek, the author of the third Chabad Rebbe, Rabbi Nachum Mendel Lubavitch, he shares with us the idea that if you want God to not look at your weaknesses and shortcomings, you don't look at someone else's weaknesses and shortcomings. It's very, very important. Very important. Because it's so easy to find shortcomings in others, but the shortcomings in ourselves, which we know about because we're not foolish, we hide, we cover up. You know, big deal. I'll make it up, right? Why don't you have that same attitude towards someone else? This is what we learned in the Maimer. And the Tzemach Tzedek said that when we do that, and that's the meaning of what Hillel said to the convert, who asked him, I teach me the entire Torah on one foot. So he said, what you don't like doing to yourself, don't do to the others. So the Tzemach Tzedek explains what he really was telling him was, you don't like when people make a big deal about your shortcomings, don't make a big deal about other people's shortcomings. We discussed also, Chaim Zev, how do we reconcile that with the mitzvah, which says in the Torah, shall you scold your friend? And the Gemara says, I feel a may upon him, even 100 times. Keep on telling him, you're doing wrong, until he gets it. So the Alter Rebbe already in chapter 32 in Tanya reconciled this, and he explained that's if he's your friend. First, you have to become friends. Are you friends? Two friends can tell each other and should tell each other, hey, you're a jerk. Hey, you need to improve. That's what friends are. Friends are not just eating popcorn, drinking beer, and going to the ball game, or playing golf, or kibitzing. That's one aspect of friends. The other aspect is, hey, guy, shape up. It's important for you, and friends should be able to talk that way. Because when you talk that way with a friend, you're not talking at him or her, you're talking with him or her. You know what I'm saying? And this is the message in chapter 32 in Tanya, which is relevant to this whole idea of reconciling, giving criticism, musar, and looking the other way. So Moshe Myers, you're there. You need to get the message out to all of Ramat Bet Shemesh, all the Litvaks and all the Hasidim, to everyone. You have to get the message out that we have to look with our right eye at another Jew. And at yourself, you should look with the left eye. And even that, if you look too much at yourself with the left eye, it's also self-deprecation and no good. In other words, when a person realizes they have a weakness, whatever it is, whether it be, whatever, right? Whatever everyone has a shortcoming, and they dwell on it, and they eat themselves up, and they say, I'm so bad, I'll never have redemption, I'll never have this, never. That is so unhealthy and so not Jewish. At the same time, saying I'm the greatest guy, the greatest gift that God gave to humanity is just as bad, because you're not. It's false, it's a lie, and it's ego. You gotta be balanced. When you learn Chassidus, listen to me, Chaim. When you learn Chassidus, and we've been learning, we're learning Chassidus deeply for 10 years almost. We're learning Chassidus. Your whole paradigm changes. The way you look at yourself, the way you look at someone else, the way you look at your community. And the previous Rebbe took that another step. I'm just reading now, finishing an article on a Jewish woman who came from a German Jewish background, and became Hasidic. She married a Chassid, and she became a teacher in her youth, like in the 20s, to strengthen Judaism. At the time in Germany, women to go to the mikveh before they have relations with their husband, and the use of the mikveh, and to learn Torah. And here it is, a woman, 100 years ago, more than 100 years ago, whatever, is championing the whole idea of women's involvement in Torah. This is a very important point. And the previous Rebbe corresponds with her in letters. I'd like you to show me other rabbis, Rebbes, Gedolim that did that 100 years ago. You won't find it. And if you do, you'll find maybe one letter. He's going back and forth with her. Why? Because the previous Rebbe saw that the future of Yiddishkeit is the woman, the Jewish home. And if you don't get the Jewish women to be involved and knowledgeable of Torah, both the revealed Torah, Talmud, Halacha, etc., and the hidden and Chassidus, then there's going to be a breakdown, and there's going to be a breakup, and there's going to be a problem. So he gives power, independence, and support to this woman who became an orator, a speaker, a motivator. Today they would call her an influencer. Her name was Edel or Edith Pappenheim. And she married Schneier Zalman Dubin, whose father, Mordechai Dubin, was a consulate member in the parliament of Riga. He was a very prominent person, very prominent, respected by all. He did tremendous amount for Latvian Judaism. So his son, Schneier Zalman, or they called him Zalman, married Edith Edel Pappenheim. And it's fascinating because a girl from Germany, they were Orthodox, but German Jewry, is in a sense a very different type of Jewry than Hasidic Jewry. It's a different, both are keeping Shabbos, but one is more kind of rigorous and punctual. Yekes.
What's it called? Yekes?
Yekes, yeah, Yekes. Right. And to get together with a chassid, that itself is a very interesting story. But it happened, and she became Hasidic. She became a Chabadnik. And she corresponds with Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, the one who's celebrating his Bais Tammuz. And he gives her food for thought. And then she translated into German an article that he wrote, in Hebrew, I believe, Yiddish Hebrew, about the importance of bringing Torah and mitzvahs into one's home. So he was working with this young 22, 23-year-old. She was born in 1917 and I believe perished in the Holocaust in 1943. So she was a young woman. So my point again is, we see clearly how the previous Rebbe, Rebbe Yosef Yitzchak, was all about the Jew who's just called Jew by name, by nickname, not even by name. Chaim Zev, it's not even by name, right? Mark. There's a Jew who's called Mark Drucker. Everyone knows Mark Drucker's a Jew. Then there's a Jew that he doesn't even know. He just knows. Like I told you the other day, the story with the guy who helped me make the minyan. The first Shabbos I was in Marin County. His name was, I believe, Brown, and I saw him changing the oil or something under his car, and I asked him, "Are you a Jew?" And he said, "Yes." And then I took him by the arm, and he said, I don't identify with Judaism. I know nothing about Judaism." I said, "That's another story. But right now we need a minyan, and you're Jewish, so you could be number 10 for the minyan." So the previous Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, his Yom HaGeula, which means our redemption. Our mean all of Judaism, all of Torah. Now, naturally, if you're going to go into Slabodka or another place and say this, they might laugh at you. Let them laugh. But their forefathers who came from Russia, they knew quite well what the previous Rebbe did. Today it's a world where the youth, many, don't know the history, and they don't care. They just look at what's present and the future. But it's important to reflect back to understand the humble beginnings and who the individuals were. And he wasn't the only individual. I mentioned Chaim Ozer. I mentioned the Sofers of the Stam Sofer and his grandson Shimon Sofer of Krakow. I mentioned the Slabodka, the people. There were many that brought tremendous amount for Yiddishkeit. But in this area of not running away and having self-sacrifice, it was one man, and one man only, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak. And by the way, his father told him in 1920, several months, I believe, before he passed away, he said, in the Maimer that he said, I think, on Rosh Hashanah, right, he passed away in Cheshvan. So in the Maimer, he spoke about Mesiras Nefesh, and I think he said to his son that this will help you in the future. And the Frierdiker Rebbe says it took 7 years for him to realize what his father said in 1920, in 1919, on Rosh Hashanah. It took him 7 years to realize that what he was talking about, that this will help you in the future, came to fruition 7 years later in 1927 when his life was threatened and ultimately he was saved at Bais Tammuz. So l'chaim again, Rebbe should help that the Frierdiker Rebbe, Rebbe Yosef Yitzchak, ben Reb Shalom Dov Ber, the Shama should enlighten us and bring to each and every one of us, our families, only simchas, goodness, and we should stand up for what's right and not capitulate to the whims of the time, to the ills of the time, to the opponents of the time, and only by standing strong and being proud and not taking your yarmulke off if you wear a yarmulke when you go on a train in Europe because you're afraid they're going to kill you or hurt you. If you want, put on a cap.
New York.
Or in New York, put on a cap, put on a baseball cap. Okay. with your beard, if you wear a beard, I'm just saying, your tzitzis. Yesterday I was in a doctor's office and I saw a Jew who's, is elderly and, and he was saying that he doesn't know Torah, he's about Teshuvah. But meanwhile, he also said that he's been going to classes over the years, and he learned, and he gave a look in his shelf how many Gemaras, Art Scroll Gemaras he went through. He finished. I said to him, "You're the best Jew. What are you putting yourself down?" And then he got up. They took him to do some test, whatever. I saw his tzitzis sticking out of his pants on both sides in a nice, organized way. And I said to him, "You got to be kidding! You're such a holy Jew. How many Jews are in here in Flatbush walking around with their tzitzis sticking out?" And he didn't go to yeshiva. You understand that? So the only way is to stand up and be proud. Wear your tzitzis out. Who are you embarrassed for? Your yarmulke, your beard, your payas, whatever. It doesn't mean to be properly dressed and well kept and organized, not like a shloch, not like a balagan, But the concept is to be proud. So the Frierdiker Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, represents that pride of Jewishness. L'chaim. Another thing.
Rebbe, two things. Rebbe, can I just ask a question?
Sure, please.
One question: Is there an Indian to make a kiddush this week?
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
She's Bais Tammuz, and she's Bais Tammuz, and your wife Zayda, Tam Chulavim was a chassid of the previous Rebbe. He painted that special picture, and he says that he sat on the lap of the previous Rebbe. That's what he says.
Yes.
So for sure you should make a kiddush and you should mention some of these things. You only at the kiddush. Yoini, you're the Chabad shliach in the Karlbach shul. I'm not joking.
I'm not alone. Hillel is my vice principal.
Okay, so you and Hillel together. What else is that all you wanted to ask? You said two things.
Yeah, that's it.
I wanted to say before we finish that when the Frierdiker Rebbe came to America in 1940, he had health issues, and he was already in a wheelchair pretty much. When he came in 1929, you could see online in the Gem video of him coming off the boat. He looks like a prince, like a king. Not only is he younger, but his posture, he looks beautiful. And you look at him in 1940, he comes off the boat in a wheelchair. So his health was deteriorating. But he lived from 1940 to 1950 when he passed away. He lived in Brooklyn. He lived here. And he accomplished a lot. And he used the Rebbe and then his other son-in-law, and Rabbi Mindel, Nissim Mindel, and Rabbi Chadekov, Rabbi Rothstein, different people, and elder Hasidim, Rabbi Shmuel Wittner, Rabbi Jacobson, Rabbi Simpson, Rabbi Rifkin, forget his last name now, Chaskind. They all contributed to make his work easier. And this type of activity laid the groundwork for the Rebbe's work from 1951 and on. And the Rebbe always said, I am a fill-in for my father-in-law. I am here to take his vision and his programs to the next level. You understand? So when we celebrate Yud Beis Tammuz Yoni, it's not only his Mesiras Nefesh, his self-sacrifice in Russia on Yud Beis Tammuz 1927. It's also his Avas Yisrael for every single Jew, and he brought it to America. And that was also revolutionary, because at the time, although it was, during and post-Holocaust, the there was this attitude, that if you're a Ben Torah, if someone sits and learns, whether it be in a kollel or yeshiva bucher, or you're a rabbi, or a kollel younger man, and all that, you're more important. And the previous Rebbe completely disregarded that. He said all Jews are important. There's no differences between Jews. And then he started, the Shabbos campaign, Mesibah Shabbos and all that. The previous Rebbe started that in the 1940s, 41, 42, 43. Then he started release time. And there are rabbis of the Litvish movement today that are results of the release time. I don't want to say names, but I know. Okay? So the Frierdiker Rebbe didn't just deal with his own Hasidim and Chabad Hasidus and discourses and meditation and praying, davening at length. He took it in a way to impact the current situation in America in the 1940s. And trust me, Yiddishkeit, Judaism in the 1940s was down. It was down. We went through a very rough period, the Holocaust, and Stalinism and all that. What? I didn't hear. What'd you say?
Shvacha Maises.
Shvacha Maises, right.
Shvacha Maises in the 1940s.
Right. It was, Shvacha Maises means, it's meager, it's weak, it's on the down. And the Frierdiker Rebbe, with his people, and then he sent out these rabbis, young rabbis in their 20s, to start yeshivas, day schools in Worcester, in Baltimore, in Newark, in Philly, in Rochester, in Boston. There were 14 Chabad yeshivas that he started, and his son-in-law, older son-in-law, Shmael Garari, was director of them under his leadership, which was again, and this will, by the way, people don't know or don't want to know, it was before Torah Masorah. Torah Masorah's first school was either 1944 45. Frierdiker Rebbe started already a school in 1941 in Newark with Rebbe Shalom Ber Gordon. Menashe is off. He's from Newark. Well, Mark is from Newark, that area. Mark, there was
we know Rebbe Gordon.
Right, Rebbe Gordon. So now credit to be given to Rabbi Teitz of Elizabeth, Rabbi Pinchas Teitz, who was the king of Elizabeth, who made a yeshiva, no question about it. But it was a co-ed yeshiva, but no question, he was a king and did a tremendous amount. And by the way, he was from Russia, from the Dvinsk, and he was very close to the previous Rebbe and the Rebbe. He would come to the Rebbe's house to have private meetings, and then when he went to Russia, he did work for Russian Jewry. The Rebbe gave him missions to do. But Rabbi Gordon's father, Rabbi Josh Gordon, who's Chabad.org, teaches so wonderfully and special, his father was Rabbi Shalom Ber Gordon, and he was sent by the Rebbe to open a yeshiva in Newark in 1941, I believe, 41 or 42. So that was before Torah Masorah. And then in 43, a yeshiva opened up either in New Haven, I forget. Now, I'm not saying there weren't other yeshivas around. I'm just saying that the Torah Masorah movement started in 44, 45. And God bless them. They've done tremendous amount, continue, and it's very important. So the Frierdiker Rebbe saw the importance of sending out young guys from 770, and he got criticism for that. Why are you taking a 23-year-old who's in the prime of his learning before he marries, and you're sending him out as a single guy to Buffalo, New York to open a yeshiva, or to Worcester, or to New Haven, or to Newark? This was before they got married. Then they got married. He sent them as, and there were rabbis who were critical. And the Rebbe said, you have a point, but there's a fire burning, and there are Jewish children all over these cities that go to public school and don't learn and don't know anything, and we need to teach them. So we have to, when a fire is burning, you do everything to extinguish the fire. L'chaim, I've told you a little bit about the Rebbe. We've verbringt, Ebshe help, then the schus of the Baal Gula, the Yeshua Yitzchak Ben, the Shalom Dave Ber, he should bring to all of us Geula, true redemption, real redemption, Mashiach. We should feel and see, and everyone should verbringt, Yoini, not only you, but everyone else in their respective shuls, make a verbringen and talk about some of these things. Share with people. Don't be shy, and Hashem will help that we will see the ultimate, the Mashiach Tzidkenu, the Kor of Mamish. Monday we will continue learning a new mimer in the Derech Mitzvosecha. I'll let you know which mimer. Zay gesund, shalom, have a great day.
Thank you. Good Shabbos, good job.
Shabbos, good yom.
Amen.